songwriting and making my own music and not creating quote-unquote music by just taking elements that already existed from somewhere else, putting them together, and as far as my own writing was concerned, something that was completely devoid of melody. Eventually I began to recognize the power and the importance of melody, which, to be perfectly honest, for a very long time, in my mind, and probably in the minds of a lot of people very focused on hip-hop, melody was not a humongous concern. In fact, rhythm is probably a much greater concern over melody. But one day I just had an epiphany where I thought words can have a more powerful impact when you marry it with melody, which is an idea as old as music itself. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that.
All right, you want to hear an impossible song? It's impossible. Can't be done. But wait a minute, Buck 65, this is Malmo. Anything's possible. You're right, let's give it a shot.
San Francisco seemed to be the city that had the most open-minded hip-hop scene, and so we all decided that that was going to be the base. And so most of those guys went, bought a big old shitty house, and everyone lived in one house, and started the record label, and basically everyone just started working together. And we had a very good spokesperson in the form of Soul, because he had like the biggest mouth in the universe. I mean, that guy can talk, and loud, and he's almost impossible to ignore. And really quickly, this crazy, experimental, heavy-ass hip-hop movement really became this thing that people were aware of. And I don't think we even really fully appreciated the power of what was going on. But shortly after that, we would be traveling and touring, and I could be anywhere from like Australia to, you know, like here in Europe, God knows where, and seeing, you know, kids, like people our age, wearing Anticon t-shirts, and new people making music on their own, expressing all sorts of weird ideas. And, you know, I could start to see like the influence of this thing. It was really starting to take hold, and it was inspiring a lot of people who maybe always felt like outsiders, or they didn't really belong like with the mainstream of what was going on hip hop, like maybe they always felt like they were a little bit of a weirdo or whatever, not cool enough or something else, but like it's okay for us to like do our thing too. And then it really, you know, it just really got big and it became powerful. And then another interesting movement started to emerge in New York that was really similar in a lot of ways with when like Company Flow came along. Really, I think if you're really honest about it and you step back, there's a lot of similarities there. And it was interesting because at that time when like the Indelible MCs came out and stuff like that, we heard that all those guys were fans of the Sebutones, and we were like, cool. And that whole circle, the extended circle with like Fondulum and Bobbito, we had like, you know, fans in this circle and so on, and it looked like, okay, now we can't be stopped. And then for whatever reason that I don't understand and I never will, just this feud started, I think for no reason, just for the sake of maybe giving people something to talk about, basically between Soul and LP from Company Flow. And it really became ridiculous, and I think it was mostly just fun for the people involved, but a lot of people took it really seriously, and in a way, it kind of killed it. It kind of killed it in a way, and it brought in a lot of negativity into this thing that was supposed to be just really positive and about doing like new things and like-minded people coming together. But it really became this war, and people chose sides, and it fractured things. And in a way, I think that's the greatest tragedy. It could have been something bigger and even more powerful, but it kind of broke up, and you know, people weren't really unified. But when you look at the legacy of it now, and all the people that have emerged from that, and the different, you know, the different aspects of it, you know, because it's funny, I mean, you can include everyone from, by extension, of course, you know, like Eminem and LP and you know, all sorts of people that went on to do lots of different things and have different levels of success. They kind of came out of this movement that we were part of right there in the mid-90s. And I don't know if a lot of people would really guessed if it would last or how big it might become, but I'll admit that it's surprising to me, maybe more than anyone else, that now, 10 years later, Anticon still exists and has evolved in a really interesting way where, you know, there's collaborations happening with people from outside the world of hip-hop music. There's a lot of instrumental music being made there. It seemed like the music really became the focus in a lot of ways. And there's a real identity there. There's a visual identity, but there's like a sonic identity. There's a sound right away that now music critics, all sorts of people, use like Anticon almost like an adjective. Because it just started out, it was like a record label, but now people say, oh, that's kind of like Anticon kind of stuff. You know, and it really became like a signature for a certain sound or a certain approach to hip-hop. It really became just, I guess, a part of like hip-hop's evolution in a certain way. And I think it's still too soon for history to really reflect it and talk about it, but I think inevitably one day when people look back at the history of hip-hop and in the 90s and what happened in the mid-90s, it's going to be part of that history.